Well, hello and welcome. This is the first of a three-part series introducing neuroaesthetics and biophilic design to the home furnishings and design industry. Today, we're going to be talking about the subjects of neuroaesthetics and biophilia as a preview to the keynote presentation we're doing on April 26th at the April High Point Market. It's a virtual show house. All design elements will be filtered through the lens of neuroaesthetics and biophilic design, and I hope you're going to mark it and can join us. Here's a preview to some of the things you'll see at the keynote. Here's a great room that is designed by Kat Blue from Blue Lantern Studios in Atlanta. And just notice the dappled lighting, the curved furnishings, the abundance of natural light, and the soft color tones. If you look closely, you'll see the painted nature scene on the wall. This is just a sample of some of the things that you will get to see at market. Here's another one. I love the the idea of prospect and refuge. So those are just teasers for what you will see at the April Market keynote presentation on April 26th. Let's get started. Let me start by calling out four major revelations that need special emphasis. They're kind of like the headlines of the day, and they are now facts. The need for aesthetic experiences, beauty, is hardwired in our DNA. Think of what that really means. Evolutionary inheritance reminds us that we are who we were. Biophilia, and we'll be talking about the human need for nature. And we will also be talking about how important it is to get out in front of this subject and begin marketing the science in design. We don't have a choice. Beauty is encoded in our DNA. From essentially the dawn of humanity, beauty, aesthetics, and nature have been integral to our existence. And this connection to beauty is not just preference, it's a biological necessity. It's an evolutionary gift that has matured over time. Dr. Anjan Chatterjee is one of our faculty members, and he heads up the Penn Center for Neuroaesthetics. And he says, our brains are not passive observers of beauty. They are active participants in how we perceive and connect with the world. Surround yourself with beauty. It shapes who you are. He goes on to say that beauty has a hold on us. We're drawn to it. We go to great lengths to get it. We immerse ourselves in it. It actually at times makes us ache. And we need to know and understand that it's beauty that is the foundation of neuroaesthetics. What's been happening is that science has begun studying us roughly 30, 35 years ago. There's a convergence of science now and design, and that word for it is neuroaesthetics, neuro being the physiological and the brain, and aesthetics, of course, being beauty, design, and nature. What's important for all of us listening to know is that science is far ahead of the design industry in understanding the health benefits of good design and the beauty provided by home furnishings. Our industry improves health, and we need to own it, internalize it, and rise to meet it. Let me give you a little bit of background on how this came about. In the late 1990s, Samir Zeki, the noted neuroscientist at the University College of London, began to study the disciplines of architecture and design, but most importantly, the beauty derived from them. He's generally considered the father of the term and the movement neuroaesthetics. And he says, it's my conviction that no theory of aesthetics is likely to be complete, let alone profound, unless it is based on an understanding of the workings of the brain. And this is one of the first acknowledgments of the connection between beauty and the brain. Today, one of the leaders in neuroaesthetics is Susan Magsamen at the International Arts and Mind Lab at Johns Hopkins University. And she says the truth is that aesthetic experiences are hardwired in all of us. They are evolutionary imperatives encoded in our DNA as an essential part of our humanity. And they are fundamental to our health, well-being, and learning. You know, this revelation for our industry is transformative. Science now knows that design is not merely about creating something visually appealing. It is about fulfilling a deep-seated evolutionary need. You're going to hear that word evolutionary several times during this talk. Professor Harry Malgrave out of the University of Pennsylvania, world-renowned architect, says beauty, like art, is a neurological activity, an urge for and feeling of pleasure, and associated with awe and wonder. Now, those are nice words, but let's pick this apart just a little. Neurological. The benefit we provide is not just emotional, which is hard to measure and calculate, but it's physical. And as such, it can be scanned and quantified. That's how we know that beauty improves health. Urge for. What he means here is that beauty, art, and design are not an elective or a passive interest. They are a compulsion. We've survived over the millennia because we sought out pleasure and beauty. And the idea that aesthetics, design, and the arts improve health is worldwide. Here's a really good example. In November of 2018, the Medical Association in Canada authorized doctors to begin, now get this, to begin prescribing time spent at art galleries and museums. Now think about that. You know, instead of giving the patient a bottle of Xanax, the prescription is go spend an hour a day for the next 2 weeks at the local art gallery. In the UK, they call it social prescribing. Now, let me offer another way to think about the word neuroaesthetics. Alexandros Labdas, a noted neuroscientist out of Urach in Italy, and he's a faculty member in our certification program. He explains neuroaesthetics a little differently. Neuroaesthetics is a scientific quest to understand the evolutionary underpinnings of the aesthetic experience. There's that word evolutionary again. And that's why I bring this quote to you. And so let's look at what these scholars are talking about. So Anne Sussman is a professor of cognitive architecture at Boston Architectural College. And she says, understanding that our brain is an artifact of 3.6 billion years of evolution frames the new direction for design and architecture. And what's really been eye-opening for me over the last several years is realizing that we're all in the middle of this vast R&D experiment, that we are the sum, we're the aggregate of all who have been before us, and we are contributing to who we will be in the millions of years ahead. It's profound. Now, what I've done is string together a few slides that will paint a picture, a better picture of what these scholars are meaning. Let me take you back 100,000 years. This is where we lived. This is where we grew up. We didn't wake up to an iPhone alarm. We woke up to the sounds of wind, nature, streams, and the flutter of wings, and the original aesthetic beauty of nature. They were our daily expectations and assumptions for millions of years. Think of the impact this environment has had on our minds and bodies and how it has shaped us. There were no steel girders, no brick walls, no computers. This is what our brains adapted to. The brain evolved in a biocentric world, not a machine-regulated world. And of course, the famous savanna. This was our habitat, a place which nurtures. This is what fills our DNA. And everyone listening to this talk right now has inherited what you see. Now, the paradox is interesting. We lived with the rabbits, the deer, the wolves, the plant life, and the trees. Today, we consider ourselves the evolved species. But the difference today is that the rabbits and deer are still in their natural environment. We are not. As kind of an exclamation point to what we just talked about, Nigel Nicholson, the noted psychologist in the UK, says, You can take the person out of the Stone Age, but you can't take the Stone Age out of the person. We are who we were. But here's the problem. This is where we live today. Anything human-centric about this? This is how we live. What's human-centric about a bunch of boxes? The question is this: if aesthetic experiences are required as a result of our DNA and our evolutionary inheritance, what in the world have we done to ourselves over the last century? Do you have an idea now of where I'm going with this train of thought? Look at the incredible need there is for what you do. Look at the need there is to balance an environment which is unnatural and, yes, unhealthy to the human. We need you to create beauty. Look at this and be reminded of the opportunity and the need in front of us. On the left is who we are and what has shaped us. And on the right is where we live today and what is influencing us today. Now, I want to digress just for a little bit and talk a little bit about the book called Constructing Health by Ty Farrow. If you don't have it yet, I heartily recommend that you get it. It's a beast of a book, but there's so much richness and knowledge and content in what Ty says that it's worth getting. Absolutely. My book is just filled with post-its and underlines, and it's a great content producer. And inside the book, Ty talks about Clark and Chalmers in their 1998 paper, The Extended Mind, where they argued that the mind is not confined to the brain, but extends throughout the body and into the environment, shaping cognition. We don't just think in our heads, we think in and through our bodies. Ty goes on to say it's a reciprocal relationship. We influence our environment and the environment influences us. Unconsciously, we speak to each other. Like a radar dish, we absorb and interpret data that in a millisecond causes thoughts and actions. We cannot touch without being touched in return. Now, as I pull this first section together, I want to read a comment from Susan Magsamen, where she says, our brains and bodies are always sensing and interpreting the world around us. And we know that the design of spaces impacts our biology. The opportunity to use this knowledge to design and create spaces that support health and well-being, that is the future of design. And I want to add that is your future as an alternative health resource. And yes, that's what science thinks of interior design. One of the world's leading authorities in neuroaesthetics says the future of design is in creating spaces that heal. And by the way, you're getting a big burst of serotonin right now because of the image on the right. This is the Unitarian Church in Charleston, South Carolina, a perfect example of fractal beauty. Now, it's not just neuroscience saying all this, it's the medical industry as well. Dr. Claudia Miller is the head of the environmental medicine department at the University of Texas in San Antonio. And she says architects and designers have a greater ability to improve public health than medical professionals. Now let that settle in just for a second. This is an aha moment. Doctors, the people that we trust with our health, are saying that we, the design industry, has a greater opportunity to improve health than medical professionals. Look at the change in our value proposition when we realize what science knows. Dr. Douglas Wood of the Mayo Clinic talks about our industry as having patients as clients because the future of medicine is in the home. All right, so I want to show you a couple of slides that talk about the unconscious mind, or in science known as the subliminal brain. I'm referring to the work done by Eric Kandel, a Nobel Prize winner in physiology and neuroscientist. And Eric says 95% of brain activity is beyond our conscious awareness. All of our conscious thoughts and actions are unconscious first. Let me read that second sentence again. All of our conscious thoughts and actions are unconscious first. Folks, we're skating through life. We could live an entire life without a conscious thought. And what this means to you is that first impressions are really, really important because they connect with something in our inheritance. In the first 3 seconds of viewing a new image or walking into a room, the unconscious mind is in control. Where do you want the eye to go, and what feelings and emotions will be triggered when somebody walks into a room you've designed? Now, let me give you an example and have you experience this sense of the unconscious mind, okay? So on the next slide, I'm going to show you 3 geometric shapes, but I want you to be in touch with what you see and understand when you first see those 3 geometric shapes. Okay, you ready? Mm-hmm. Now we see 3 shapes, but we see something more. We see a facial structure. And what just happened in this little experiment is exactly what happens when we see beauty, design, and its aesthetics. Our evolutionary inheritance kicks in automatically. It's not elective. It's encoded in our DNA for the first 3 to 4 seconds of viewing a new image. So the question for you is, are you designing for the subliminal brain? We're going to switch to biophilia now. And I want to tee up the conversation by showing you what major corporations and industry leaders are doing, in this case, their headquarters. Why does Amazon's headquarters have nest-like conference rooms hanging from the ceiling and a headquarters containing 390 different types of vegetation? No, this isn't a spaceship. Why did Apple spend $5 billion on their new 100% biophilic headquarters in California? Every workstation has access to natural sunlight and greenery. Why did they do that? Why did Etsy feel the need to turn their Brooklyn headquarters 100% biophilic, which workstations are actually hanging cocoons? And why is Microsoft building conference rooms in treetops? Now, I could show you hundreds more examples, but the bigger question is, what science do these industry leaders and companies know that motivate them to do this? What do these industry leaders know that we might want to learn? And that is the lead in to the darling of the design business today, and that is biophilic design. We are nature. We forget that, as I showed you earlier, with our phones, our cars, our buildings, and information overload, which interrupts our natural thought process. We've been redirected from the natural norm to the unnatural. So let's take a look at this relatively new discipline in design called biophilia. So I know it's an odd sounding word when you first hear the word biophilia, but after a while you get used to it and you begin to understand that bio means nature. Philia is the opposite of phobia, so we're talking about the love of. Put them together and we're talking about the love of nature. Biophilic design is the deliberate attempt to design for the inherited human affinity for nature in our environment. And we need to remember this as well. Humans have existed less than 1/100% of the species history in modern surroundings, and the other 99.99% of the time living in nature. It's no wonder why we yearn for a time where human physiological, psychological functions began and were naturally supported. This is who we are. Now, let me give you a little bit of history and background. It was in the early 1980s that scientists began to look at this phenomenon called the need for nature, biophilia. And one of the studies that was done in a hospital outside of Philadelphia. Doctors there were noticing that some patients were recovering from surgery faster than others. So they brought in Professor Roger Ulrich from Texas A&M, who did the study. And he realized that some patients had a view of brick walls out the window. Others had a view of a tree landscape. Well, it turns out that those who had a view of a landscape, the recovery time was down almost one full day. And the use of pain medication was down 22%. Now know that the pain receptors in our brain are aligned with those receptors that seek out pleasure and beauty. Just a view of nature did this. So how does this apply to the design industry? Well, Stephen Keller, in his book Nature by Design, says natural form can be considered as a creative or compositional grammar for creating all types of and varieties of design, art, and architecture. Look at this image. Look at the movement, the fluidity, the softness, the grace of nature. There are no right angles and no straight lines in nature. Makes you wonder how we design and why we design sometimes the way we do today. Now, the other important aspect, really important aspect about biophilia and biophilic design is its ability to improve health. And it's something we lean on at Science and Design pretty hard. We know that beauty and the design that interior designers create improves health. Here's proof. This image is the Khoo Teck Puat Hospital in Singapore, and it is 100% designed through the biophilic lens. It's also kind of the standard in the hospital industry today. If you're an architect ready to draw up a new hospital, you make a pilgrimage to Singapore to see this hospital. This is Maggie Center, a cancer facility at St. James University in England. 100% biophilic. Look at the color tones. Look at the abundance of natural sunlight. Look at the fractal patterning on the walls and on the ceiling. Look at the pockets of greenery. So let me ask you this. If the medical industry around the world is using biophilic design to improve the health of their patients, and you know where I'm going with this, shouldn't we be using it to improve the health of our patients? Look at the opportunity we have to change the value proposition of our industry. A couple of studies. This is the Rusk Institute outside of New York City, where they prescribed for 107 cardiac patients time spent in a nursery, not just to walk through, but literally to put their hands in dirt and plant flowers for just 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, there was a decrease in the heart rate of 5 beats per minute, approximately a 6 to 7% improvement in the usage of the heart. And you may or may not have heard of the phrase Shinrin Yoku. It's a Japanese term that means forest bathing. And this was a study done in the early 1990s where doctors sent 420 patients out into the forest to spend time. The result was a 12.4% decrease in the cortisol level and a 6% decrease in the heart rate. The study was so successful that it is now, like I mentioned in Canada, it is now a medicine in Japan. So you go to the doctor and he says, go spend an hour a day in the forest for the next 2 weeks. Okay, we're going to talk about applying this biophilic design. Now, there are multiple principles of biophilic design, but for the sake of time, I'm only going to talk about 4 of them today. And those 4 are prospect and refuge, organized complexity, modes of mystery, and the use of patterns and fractals. Let's get started. Okay, I'm taking you back in time again. This is where we lived, safe and secure in our refuge, our sanctuary, safe and secure, maybe with a fire burning in the front of the cave to keep away unwanted guests, but with a view outside at the prospect of the rest of the world, filling us with awe and wonder. And here's what it might look like today. One marketing tip for all the designers listening. This is so important to the human. When you're photographing your projects, be sure to use this point of view because it's so calming and important to the viewer on your website clicking through pages. This just might get them to stay an extra couple of seconds on your page. Look at this. We just connected 1,000,000 years of evolutionary inheritance. Organized complexity in nature. Look at the multitude of lines, geometries, and scales, all blended into this gorgeous image of beauty. All elements highly complex, but organized. And by the way, biophilia is taking us back to the original definition of the word geometry. You know, I've always thought of geometry as being right angles, 90-degree angles, rectangles, but the original interpretation, Latin root, is geo, meaning earth, metry, meaning measure, measuring the earth. And by the way, science tells us that we are attracted to organized complexity because our brains are an inherited example of the same. Think about it. How boring is a straight line? It doesn't become interesting until we give it movement. Now, you may know what this is, but I love showing this because it is such a fabulous example of organized complexity. This is Gaudi's La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. And what's amazing to me is that Gaudi turned the first spade of dirt in 1880, and they hope to finish it either this year or next year. 146 years to complete. Now, a hypothetical here, just in case your clients don't want to wait 146 years to experience organized complexity, I think this would take less time. A fair amount of nature thrown in, but a great example of organization and complexity. Modes of mystery. Now, I have to admit, I found this really interesting. The idea of mystery is not something I would connect to interior design, yet it's a powerful motivating force in our search for health and well-being. Look at that image. Look deeply into it. What's at the end of that trail? What's behind the trees on the right? What can I discover next? It really does make sense that there's an air of positivity and wonder as to what's around the corner. And here's what it might look like today. What's at the end of the hallway? What's behind the door on the left? I'll show you another example of a long hallway in just a minute. And by the way, this is another image I just threw in because I just love the image and it's filled in my mind. It's filled with mystery. Okay, fractals, patterns for our brain. And we'll spend a little more time on this. Fractals are self-similar patterns over a range of magnification scales, continuous, consistent, and similar geometric images. Ferns are a perfect example of fractals. Snowflakes, clouds, waves in the ocean, tree canopies, veins on a leaf, and veins in our bodies, reminding us that we are walking fractals. Rita Trombin, who works with Turpin Bright Green, the consulting firm that specializes in biophilia, wrote the article Working with Fractals. And I heartily recommend that you go to their website, Turpin's website, and get this article. Listen to what she says based on medicine. The experience of fractals has quantifiable health benefits, including reduced stress, improved cognitive functioning, enhanced creativity and problem solving, heightened appreciation for nature and positive emotions, all of that by being exposed to fractal beauty. Improved cognition, positive emotions. And we now know that the benefits of fractals have been shown to occur within minutes. Stephen Keller, author of Nature by Design, says humans have evolved to thrive in complex yet coherent fractal environments. Now look at this next sentence. We perceive fractal environments as having the highest aesthetic value. Of all the design elements in your toolkit, the number one highest aesthetic value that will create beauty, that will create health, is fractal beauty. And by the way, you're looking at the solar-powered treescapes in Singapore's Gardens by the Bay. Let's make this a little more personal. Dr. Richard Taylor, a faculty member and a professor at the University of Oregon, a fractal fluency specialist speaking around the world, says fractals are the basic building blocks of nature. The slide is another reminder that we are nature. Examples of circulatory system and tree canopy, sister images in nature, and perfect examples of fractals as being basic building blocks. You could virtually flip the colors on those two images. He also says the fractals are the fingerprint of nature. Okay, before I show you the next slide, I want everybody to look at the palm of your right hand. What do you see? You see the basic building blocks of nature. We are nature. Now, I want to show you an example of how fractals and biophilic can be used to heal. You may not recognize this space, but it's an elementary school that was built to replace one that had to be torn down in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. The mandate from the city managers to the architects was create a space that heals the kids and heals the city. Look at what they've done. Look at the roof line. Remember, there are no straight lines in nature. Look at the natural color tones, the fractal stone wall, the lyrical canopy over the front door. Let's go inside. Look at the treescapes. Look at the patterns on the floor. And look at that hallway. My goodness, what is at the end of that hallway? This is what's at the end of that hallway. Look at the fractal patterning on the floor. Look at the fractal shadows off the windows, the color contrast, the movement in the furnishings, the abundance of natural sunlight. What 7-year-old wouldn't thrive in an environment like that? Okay, I want to get to the last portion of this talk, and I want to talk about what designers are starting to do now around the country. You know, we have this science and design certification program, and those designers, the hundreds of designers that have now taken the course, are now beginning to speak the language and in their work on their websites. So I want to show you examples of several websites where designers are speaking the language of neuroaesthetics and biophilic design. This is Jenny Pippin out of Central North Carolina talking about the science of stress reduction, science behind biophilic design to heal the mind, body, and soul. This is Dayhouse Studio in Utah, bridging interior design and health, saying it's a new paradigm for design. This is SDS Designs in Northern Virginia, actually using the phrase science in design. This is Elon Design outside of DC, Neuroaesthetics, the science of how beauty and art affect our mind. Here's Bartone Interiors in Richmond, talking about 15 ways biophilic design can transform your life. Here's Patricia Kennedy in Fort Lauderdale at Rendezvous Design. Wellness is the new wealth, talking about how her new knowledge of neuroaesthetics and biophilia promotes healing in human-centric design. Here's Cat Blue at Blue Lantern Studios. Design is where science and art break even. Here's Trisha Turk out of Colorado Springs, the interior design firm dedicated to the beauty of well-being. Her first sentence, which is a little hard to read, I guess, is neuroaesthetics is the study of beauty and science. And Erica McLean in Dallas, our science-based design approach. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in an industry whose future is now born in science. Let's speak the language, all of us together. Anybody that has attended any of my talks knows I like to provide a bibliography at the end of the talk, and I want to do that in this case as well. This is where it started for me on December 15th, 2015. I was still publisher of Lux Magazine, and I was having lunch with an architect in Denver, Colorado by the name of Don Ruggles. I had never met him before. Don, during lunch, started talking about beauty and how it improves health. And something happened to me. I started thinking, wait a minute, beauty improves health. Designers create beauty. Put them together, and we now know that designers improve health. I was smitten. I was totally taken by the subject matter. I started studying it. A year later, I quit Lux Magazine to spend the rest of my career helping the industry realize its role as an alternative health resource. A year after that, Don authored and published the book, Beauty, Neuroscience, and Architecture. I must have read it 10 times, and I always learned something new each time. Don writes in a very calm voice, easy to read, does have academics and good content in it, and it's a place to start. If you have not read this book yet, this is the first book I would go out and get. All right. The second book I would recommend is Cognitive Architecture by Anne Sussman. Being an academic, Anne gets into a little more scientific detail, but it's still a good read, an easy enough read with a lot of content, content that I haven't even come close to covering here in this talk. Excellent, excellent book. And the last one is the newest of these three by Ty Farrell. Again, I mentioned it earlier, Constructing Health is an excellent, wow, it's just great, filled with great ideas and great quotes. Now, what I like about Ty, I mean, he's a champion now of our ability to improve health. And he wants us to start realizing what it's doing to our industries. And listen to the quote that he has on this slide and how he recognized the elevated status of our industry. He says, understanding design's role in shaping who we are and what we might become stands to increase the gravity of our work, elevate the stature of our role in industry, and highlight the extent of our contribution to human and ecological well-being. I offer this to remind us all of the revolution that is taking place in design today. We are moving from a perceived value of creating pretty rooms to a perceived value that positions designers in the design industry as an alternative health resource. Now, I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I really hope you take a look at this. The more designers we get certified, the faster this industry will change for the good. This is a certification program, and we have 22 classes, 1 year to complete it. There are 13 CEUs. It's self-paced online, and it's taught by academics and scholars from several of the schools that I've mentioned, like Penn Center for Neuroaesthetics, Turp and Bright Green, University of Oregon, University of Texas, Boston Architectural College, and even more. Now, if you get to see this recording in time and can join us in Atlanta on May 7th, Jenna Jacobs-Freeman, John Valentine, and Kat Blue, and I will be there on the afternoon of May 7th talking about how uh, science and design and neuroaesthetics has changed their businesses for the good. All three are certified in the science and design. There will also be an introduction to neuroaesthetics from me. Also, and this one's even more important, I think, on May 14th, we are putting together a full day, an immersive day in the science. Dr. Richard Taylor, whom I've mentioned earlier, the fractal specialist, will be speaking. Jennifer Walsh, the strategic advisor to the Harvard Brain Institute. Don Ruggles will talk about homeostasis, the need to balance our nervous system. And Kate Bendewald and Nina Lichtenstein, both certified, will talk about what this has done to their business. And by the way, there'll be a fun live open mic hour during the lunchtime. I've never tried that before. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I'm excited about having designers from, frankly, all over the world join in and share some good ideas. So I hope you will join us. Go to the Science and Design website and sign up for the full day session. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning to accommodate the West Coast. All right, lastly, let's listen to Harry Malgrave when he says, I believe we're on the verge of a revolution in the way that we approach design. It will no longer be guided by the speculative constructs of borrowed theory, but rather by a more basic understanding of the human organism and its existential engagement with the built environment. This is the epiphany that needs to take place. Are we hearing a wake-up call? When's the last time you sat through a design presentation with an image like this? Our friends in medicine, academia, and neuroscience know our needs and see our opportunity better than we do. So let's catch up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in an industry whose future is now born in science. And let's change his last sentence and let it be that we are the epiphany that needs to take place. On behalf of all of us at Science and Design, I thank you for listening. I hope this is meaningful to you. I love this subject, so please feel free to reach out to me at any time, mike@scienceanddesign.com. And I talk to 3 or 4 designers every day about this subject. And if you have an opportunity for presentations in your market, I'm glad to come out and speak on the subject. So thank you, and thank you very much.